My name is Stephanie Herrera. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for the Placer County District Attorney's Office. And today I am with our SART coordinator. Can you start by introducing yourself, giving us your title and your role in the office?
Hi, so my name is Lannie Waters. I am the Sexual Assault Response Team Nurse Coordinator for Placer County. My role is I I am the program manager for our SART team within Placer County. We provide the 24/7 response for victims of sexual assault and intimate partner violence.
That's incredible. Now, I think a lot of our residents probably aren't as aware of your role and your position, so I'm so glad we're able to talk today. Can you give me kind of a step-by-step walkthrough? Someone experiences a domestic violence incident. What does it look like from the incident all the way up till coming to you and receiving an exam?
When there has been an incident of domestic violence, the way it gets to me, there's a couple of different ways it can come to me. One, once that happens, law enforcement may be notified. If law enforcement is notified, law enforcement arrives on scene. They will obtain a report. If they will ask a series of questions, especially surrounding incidents of strangulation, which is any manual pressure placed around the neck. If there's concern for that, and the victim is willing to come in for an exam, they will authorize an exam and then notify Stand Up Placer. Stand Up Placer is our advocacy team within Placer County. They have our on-call schedule of all examiners within the county, and they will place the officer on that call to speak to one of us. From there, we will arrange for an exam to take place. That exam will take place in the emergency room at either Sutter Roseville Medical Center or Sutter Auburn Faith. Those are our two response locations within the county. If victims decide they want to go to Kaiser, unfortunately, right now, our response team will only go to Sutter Roseville and Sutter Auburn Faith, so they would be having to move to that location. Once they arrive, we arrive usually within an hour of being called. The victim will be registered into the emergency room and placed into a private room immediately. From there, they will be seen by myself or somebody on our forensic team who has specialized education and training caring for these victims of violence. An emergency room doctor will come in to see them. A registered nurse in the emergency room will come to see them because we want to make sure that they're okay. Another way we get notified for these situations is if somebody called in. Someone who's been a victim of violence absolutely can call Stand Up Placer. Stand Up Placer is an advocacy team. Sometimes they call in requesting assistance. Again, from there, the team is well trained and knows to notify our team so that a victim can speak to an examiner immediately to ask any questions in order to have this exam take place. They will have to report to law enforcement. If they're not ready to report to law enforcement, for sure we will have resources available for you.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell me just the importance of going through this process, getting seen by you, and working with local resources in our county once an incident's occurred?
It's extremely important, especially when there's a strangulation involved. Strangulation and choking, those terms are interchangeable. Choking is when somebody is choking on, say, a carrot and it gets lodged in their throat, whereas strangulation is when there's actual pressure placed around the neck where someone's not able to breathe, there's not circulation of oxygenated blood going to the brain. So those are very dangerous. So it's extremely important for somebody to come in because strangulation is one of the most dangerous forms of assault. It leaves little to no injury at all. Many think that if there's pressure placed around the neck, you may see bruises, you may see scratches and things like that, but that doesn't generally always happen. Statistics have shown that over 50% of cases, there is no visible injury with a strangulation, even if there is serious internal damage that takes place. This can cause life-threatening injuries, which are not obvious right away. That's why it's really important to be able to come in to see somebody immediately. This exam can help detect symptoms related to brain hypoxia. Brain hypoxia is lack of oxygenation to the brain. As I had mentioned, when there's pressure placed around the neck, we've got a lot of important structures within that neck. We have arteries that feed oxygenated blood to the brain. And if there's an obstruction there, it's not getting to the brain. And that can cause what's called the hypoxia, which can cause visual changes, can cause memory loss, can cause confusion, and even traumatic brain injury. Especially important for those who have been in domestic violence situations and have been strangled multiple times. Multiple incidences of strangulation can cause traumatic brain injury over time. It's important to come in because in order for us to really determine if there's any vascular injury, that injury to the carotid arteries, that's part of the vascular system within the body, you would need to come in to the hospital. There's CT scans that are done that are only done within the emergency room to determine if there's any damage to the carotid arteries or the vertebral arteries. Those are the arteries that are in the back of your brain, that can contribute to clots, stroke, and even death with a strangulation type of event. Another piece of this is airway. Airway meaning, can't breathe. That's one of the symptoms. Like usually I cannot breathe. Patients will say they cannot breathe. And that can worsen over a couple of days. Sometimes those symptoms will come out right away, and there can be internal swelling around the airway. And if that isn't looked at immediately, it can cause an obstruction. If it becomes so swollen, you could totally stop breathing. It can also affect the way somebody talks. If somebody's not able to talk, that could, impact, their swallowing. It can impact, breathing and things like that. And then there's the internal bleeding that happens as well. Many subtle findings we look for as trained experts in this field. That's not generally done by the emergency room. It's not done by the emergency room. The emergency room's role is to provide medical clearance, making sure you're medically okay. However, with a trained eye for a forensic examiner, we come in looking for those subtle signs, such as petechiae, those are ruptured vessels, with little brown dots and red dots around your eyes, inside of your mouth, that isn't normally seen in other situations. Vocal changes. You have the hoarseness in the voice, clearing your throat a lot, difficulty swallowing. Maybe it's getting worse to swallow. That becomes an issue because if the swelling gets so bad, they're not going to be able to swallow or breathe or speak, which becomes a medical emergency. So basically, our job is to prevent a medical emergency from happening. And I will say that many times this is downplayed by victims coming in because, as I mentioned before, it doesn't leave much injury externally. Once they're able to breathe again, they're breathing so that you feel like you're okay. But really, there are dangers post-strangulation that can happen, as I mentioned earlier, 3 days up to 1 week after this.
Wow. And I've heard a lot of studies and news articles about how strangulation can be indicative of future violence.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit more about what research has shown lately on the dangers of future violence surrounding a strangulation incident?
Women who have been strangled by an intimate partner, even by one time, have an increased risk, greater than 750% risk of being killed by that same partner because they were strangled, which is a danger. It's something that is a danger to the community, even to have someone with that level of violence, among us. And so, yes, it's incredibly dangerous.
I think that was something that I learned coming into the office. The biggest thing was, how people view animal abuse as indicative of future violence. I don't think people view strangulation, and they should, as such an indicator. I think society, when they look at animal abuse or something like that, they have that light bulb go off. But what we're working on and what you're working on is making sure that strangulation has that same kind of effect to the average person.
Absolutely.
With that, can you talk a little bit more about our strangulation resource portal and kind of what you've done to increase education for strangulation in our county?
I The resource portal is an awesome resource for our community to go to get information related to the dangers of strangulation, signs and symptoms of the brain hypoxia and things of those things that I was talking about, who to go to. Some of the things that I have been doing to assist with that, I've been doing a lot of education and training with our law enforcement agencies, with our hospital systems, with our advocacy teams, and with just our nurses and law enforcement within the state, letting them know about what these dangers are and what we need to do to prevent any further issues or.
Well, on that note, I've been seeing this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I do see a lot of online chatter or even in-person chatter kind of about the difficulties of
Mhm.
leaving, even with all this knowledge at hand. And that it's much more complicated than that. And I agree. And, looking at the community and space, that is not a incorrect statement. But as we know in our office, it is critical to take those steps, whatever that may be. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of the considering to leave and why it's critical to safety in the household, to self, to the community in your professional experience?
I think first and foremost, it's important to leave for the safety of yourself, for the safety of your family, your children. There is research out there that states that, a person who has a child who has been in a home that comes from domestic violence and witnesses domestic violence, especially to the level of strangulation, can impact their brain development. There's actual research out there sh- showing this. And so, for the sake of the safety of the children, yourself, it's important to get the help that you need. And it also helps to make these perpetrators accountable for their actions to provide community safety for others and for future violence to stop. Once that relationship stops, then it will stop any future violence in any other relationship this other person may decide to obtain. And hopefully maybe help can be sought out for this person. Um, we have lots of community, resource and support, with Stand Up Placer. Stand Up Placer is an excellent resource to have within our community to utilize that. Many people don't understand what those resources are. There's counseling services. They have assistance with the judicial system that can be helpful. But I think taking that first step, it's a scary first step, and usually it takes a woman about 7 to 8 times to leave her perpetrator. But in my experience, I have found that even at the seventh time, it's usually almost a near death type of experience when that
Wow.
happens. Um, the other risk factor is, suicide. For those who are involved in a domestic violence situation, they have an increased risk for suicide, for suicidal plans, depression, anxiety, PTSD. There's lots of other factors that go into play the longer someone is in a relationship like this.
Wow. Yeah, and you look at it at the community at large when we talk about these broader issues and the why, it's just, it affects so much more than the two people in the domestic violence situation. And it's a perfect examples that you just gave. And having our community take a look at it, look at the signs, support those. Unfortunately, there's so many people that have either been in one or know someone in one that I think everyone's been unfortunately touched by domestic violence in one way. So having these conversations, I'm so grateful. I've been seeing a lot of conversations around posts that we do, articles that we share,
Mhm.
and the more we report, the more we talk about it, the more you do what you're doing in the community and otherwise, we keep on talking about it. And we're not going to have all the answers today, but definitely staying silent is not going to get us closer to the answers and the solutions that we need. So we appreciate you and all the work that you do. Is there anything else that I missed that you want to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much covered a lot. I just would like to stress that there's help out there. We are here to support anyone who needs help. Never to be afraid to take that first step. There are resources available. Call Stand Up Passer, be an anonymous caller, you know, do what you need to do. Call law enforcement. We're here to help you get through this. Even if you just need some information and you're not quite ready, we are here to support you in this county.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to see if I can stop recording for a second.